Disney's Disneyland.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are.
Each week as you enter this timeless land, one of these many worlds will open to you. Tomorrowland, promise of things to come. Fantasyland, the happiest kingdom of them all. Frontierland, tall tales and true from the legendary past. Adventureland, the wonder world of nature's own realm. Presenting this week from Adventureland, behind the cameras in Lapland and the Alaskan Eskimo. And now, your host, Walt Disney.
Nearly 80% of the world's land areas lie between the frigid zones of our globe here through this middle band. And over 99% of the world's population lives here. Seems like it should be 100%. Why anyone would choose a harsh and rugged life at the northern extremities of our globe is hard to understand. Yet many people do. And on this program, we're going to meet some of them. First, we're going behind the cameras for an adventure in Lapland. Then a story from the other side of the lens with the Alaskan Eskimo. Here now to tell you more about these adventures is your narrator, Winston Hibbler.
Since Lapland is a story of how a people have adapted themselves to a place, it's interesting to note that this is perhaps the one common denominator of all our People and Places films. For instance, Siam, or Thailand, is a place of unusually heavy rainfall, which has created large areas of floodlands. Not only do the people take this condition as a matter of course, they actually use the floodwaters to their advantage. The people of Siam have built a way of life about their floodlands and the many rivers and canals that drain them. Just the opposite condition exists here in this arid region of the Sahara Desert, where water is practically non-existent. The blue men of Morocco, nevertheless, have adapted themselves to this condition. They've developed an economy based on the camel, a beast of burden that can travel great distances without water. Switzerland is a place of rugged and precipitous mountains. The people here learned that these mountains were not only a protective bulwark to their security and independence, but they've also learned how to adapt their agriculture to fit their rugged terrain. Antarctica is a place where there are no people. That is, there were no people. But with the approach of the geophysical years, many nations of our globe are sending expeditions there for purposes of scientific studies. Our own United States Navy Task Force 43 is establishing bases in the Antarctic at the present time. An adventuresome group of men is actually learning to exist in a degree of cold never before endured. With present-day technical knowledge at their beck and call, plus the equipment and engineering skill of the Seabees, an all-year settlement is in construction. Man has conquered the planet's last stronghold. Again, it's the story of a people adapting themselves to a place. But it's time now to go behind our cameras in Lapland and see how our People and Places photographer filmed the story of the Laps for the motion picture screen. And this is a story of a people who have adapted themselves to a cold, harsh, and forbidding place. And they're truly an international people. For the Laps owe allegiance to no nation and have the freedom of the borders of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia. Here, just above the Arctic Circle, in the northernmost outposts of these four nations, is the place of our story. It's a land locked in winter's grip for the greater part of the year, a land of high mountains, low temperatures, and deep snows. In these forested lowlands, immense herds of reindeer have spent the winter. Early in May, the ancient and uncontrollable urge to migrate beckons the herds north to the summer pastures. Reindeer are the cattle of Lapland, and the Lap must go where the reindeer go. As the great herds move northward, the herdsmen's families follow close behind to accompany them on the journey. Frozen lakes and rivers serve as ice-paved highways for the northbound caravan. Survival in this rugged land demands a community effort. So for this hazardous journey, neighbor joins with neighbor, family with family. Tame steers, called harks, pull the sleds and boat like polkas. Since the Laps follow forever the way of the wanderer, personal possessions must be kept at a minimum. Everything must be portable, including the milk supply. While there's no room for luxuries, there's always a place for the family pet. Toward mid-morning, the sun softens the snow, and this makes tough sledding, so it's time to call a halt. In order to film the life of these Arctic nomads, it was necessary for our photographer to become something of a nomad himself. And so for over 3 years, Rickard Tegstrom lived among the reindeer herdsmen and their families. The story of these hardy Norsemen and how they adapt their lives to follow the deer is the theme and substance of our color motion picture, Lapland. Since the Laps are a people literally herded by their cattle, most of their life is spent on the trail. So they've become expert at outdoor living. Reindeer meat is the most readily available food, and barbecued venison is the basis of Lap diet. It furnishes the nourishment so essential to this rugged life. After the meal, a Lap pup laps up the last of a Lap lunch. There's plenty of food for all, including dried lichen and moss for the sled deer. The enforced stop gives the herdsman time for a pipe and a breather. It's also a chance to talk over the day's march and to speculate on the journey ahead. But the brief respite ends all too soon. The chill of late afternoon hardens the snow, making sled travel possible again. So everything must be reloaded for a journey that will last through the night. There's some difference of opinion, however, as to the joy of an all-night sleigh ride. But with objections overruled, the caravan moves on. Only a people of strong hearts and hardy stock would choose life in this forbidding country. But there are compensations in the grandeur of the land and the inspiration of the lofty mountains. Distant Mount Aka is the goal of the deer. High on its shoulders, the cows will drop their calves. To await the calving, spring camp will be established in the warmer valleys below. Here and there, the framework of last year's tent, or kota, has withstood the heavy snows of winter. With nature's materials at hand, any stopping place soon becomes home to the Lap. Even the most critical once-over seems to reveal no cause for complaint.
The rest of the camp is quickly organized. Sides of reindeer ribs are hung high out of reach of marauding animals. Other perishables are stored in a cache nearby. In no time at all, the camp is complete. Some longing urge compels the cows to give birth in the same place they themselves were born. And so, high in these almost inaccessible areas, the calving occurs. To reach the site, cameras and equipment had to be pulled by manpower. Finally, high in this cloud-hung wilderness of crags and chasms, our photographer locates the herdsman. The Lap's entire economy is based on the welfare of the herd, so a close watch must be kept against attack by wolves and wolverines, for the newborn calves are easy prey to predators. This may be a cold place for a nursery, but here the calves are free from troublesome insects that would torture them in the lower elevations. Reindeer entered the world conditioned to cold, and their first few days are spent developing strength and stamina. Fast, fleet hoofs are essential in keeping pace with the herd. Progress is rapid, as hoofs broaden and spread into perfect built-in snowshoes. Trial runs begin early, for the herd is anxious to move on. Now and then, of course, the basic training must allow for necessary interruptions. With the calves no longer easy prey, the guardsmen are free to return to camp. It's a welcome opportunity to lay down their burdens and a chance to rejoin their families. The Arctic sun has finally cast off the shroud of winter. The thaw turns icebound chasms into full-flowing rivers and cataracts of grandeur. With the lakes free of ice, sleds are abandoned. The rest of the journey to their summer home can now be negotiated by boat. The glory of the virgin country is broken only by an occasional village of other Laps encamped along the shore. After days of travel over many miles, the journey ends. It's been long and tiring, and everyone is glad the trip is over. Here at the summer home site, life will be less rugged. Most of the families have erected sod houses in seasons past. Some are even equipped with the luxury of glass windows. The sod structures even support roof gardens, where summer blossoms wave a welcome. Opening a Lap house for the summer is as simple as removing the cover from the smoke vent. Soon everyone settles down to the regular routine of summer chores. A supply of last year's hay has been providently stored in a cache, for the Lap's first consideration is the care of their stock. here a close affection has developed between people and animals, for the bounty each gives the other. But their land of scenic wonder holds no vacation for the Laps. Countless tasks must be performed. To cope with the conditions under which he lives, the Lap has developed many ingenious methods. To repair sleds or polkas, many of the materials are homegrown, including the nails. When you can't fit a square peg into a round hole, you build a square hole. When swelled by moisture, the wooden pegs will hold as securely as steel bolts. And better still, they won't rust. Hot pitch preserves the spruce runners for slick, smooth sledding. Supplies of fish will be seined from the lake, so nets must be kept in perfect condition. Those who aren't busy doing are busy watching, the young learning from the more experienced. Like children everywhere, some learn by experimenting. Now let's see, 40mm lens focused on infinity. Pretty good exposure. No, better stop it down to f6.3. There, that's better. Hand-carved bone hondos will be needed for lariat loops in lassoing deer at the fall roundup. The short summer leaves little time for all there is to be done. But for a change in daily routine, the berry season offers a chance for diversion. The shrub-covered slopes of the high meadows afford just the proper growing conditions. A plentiful crop of sweet and tasty cloudberries makes the hike well worthwhile. While all manner of vessels are used, the Lap can adapt nature's materials to serve almost any need. A basket can be fashioned from birch bark in a matter of seconds. Seems like an even trade. One berry for one berry basket. Each has his own method, but the one that requires the least energy is preferred by the small fry. Of course, there are always some who prefer their berries already picked. When baskets and buckets are bulging with berries, it's time for lunch. In Lapland, as elsewhere, when boys and girls get together, warm romance is in the air, even in cold air. But they were completely at ease in the presence of the camera, and a close friendship developed between our photographer and the Laps. At this season, most of the men are busy tending the herds. A hike to the high mountain pasture holds promise of a Lappish courtship, so our photographer hits the trail too. But it looks as though the girls have just gone along for the hike. The fall roundup lies just ahead, and yearlings must be marked for identification. This is done by the painless process of ear cropping. To be spurned for a reindeer is no light matter, but the girls know that this is a busy time. The spectacle of reindeer converging for the return to winter pastures is an awesome sight never before told on the screen. To film it, photographer Tegstrom took our People and Places camera to the roundup area in the high mountain pastures. There he recorded scenes of unparalleled wonder. times, the camera caught them virtually on the brink of stampede. The restless stirring of the deer is the signal for the families to move out. And when the warning is given, there's no time to lose. Apprehension mounts as leaden skies warn of storms and blizzards. The more experienced know that neither deer nor herdsmen can withstand winter in this mountain vastness. However, to some, wintertime holds the promise of festivities, gaiety, and even weddings. But there are still crucial moments. On the return, a Judas deer lures the herd into swimming icy waters. Whether or not they make it to the safety of the far shore depends on this one deer. If he gets out of control, the entire herd may be lost in a wild melee of hoof and horn. The slightest distraction may cause the deer to panic. Even the presence of the camera posed a danger. But Tegstrom had earned the confidence of the herdsman, and the photography was allowed to proceed. The final outcome of the crossing is fully told in color in our CinemaScope theatrical production, Lapland. The story of Lapland is one of hardship and courage, for nature is never gentle here. But this harsh land is the choice of the Laps themselves, and it's their destiny to wander forever in the wake of the deer, through a land they can challenge, but never change. It's often been said that environment shapes a people. And so one would expect that people living under similar conditions would develop a similar way of life. But in the Arctic regions of the world, there are many different groups of people, and while their surroundings may be nearly identical, their cultures often emerge in sharp contrast to each other. For instance, the Alaskan Eskimo has developed a way of life peculiar to his race alone. The story of the Alaskan Eskimo begins in the dim reaches of the past. Thousands of years before Columbus reached the New World, a migration of Asiatic nomads moved eastward across the great ice bridge that joined the continents. They were refugees from the bleak plains of Siberia, driven by hunger and the urge to find a new homeland. All but a few moved southward, seeking a gentler climate, a richer, easier life. Those who stayed behind to settle on the harsh Alaskan tundra were a hardy, courageous people, and their descendants survive to the present day. They are the Eskimos. Year after year, they fight the elements for the simple necessities of existence. But of all the primitive Americans, they alone have never felt the yoke of conquest. And though they're poor in worldly goods, still, strangely enough, they've found riches beyond compare. Their treasure is a way of life. But it's a life that we would find rough and rugged indeed. A never-ending struggle against the hardships of the Arctic cold. Yet spring does come, and for a few short months, the Eskimo village is free from winter's grip. A typical Eskimo village is hardly a modern metropolis. There's no corner drugstore here, no theater, not even a post office. But on the other hand, there isn't any jail either. The architecture isn't pretty, but it is practical. Since this is a treeless land, building materials consist entirely of sod and driftwood. And so villages are usually found along the coast, close to nature's lumberyard. When an Eskimo builds a house, he also buries it. For he must anchor his timbers deep in the earth to keep it from blowing away with the first gale of winter. And he doesn't have to buy his lot. He builds where he pleases. He uses no plans, but builds almost by instinct. For Eskimo methods and customs never change. They've been passed down from father to son through countless generations. A good thick layer of earth, firmly packed, and the house is finished. Here it is, home sweet home, complete with northern exposure. Every moment of the short summer season must be used to prepare for the long winter months ahead. Each day is carefully planned, and the building of a whaleboat is a matter of first importance. Eskimos are fine craftsmen. Working with only the crudest of hand tools, they get remarkable results. Walrus hides, carefully stitched together, are used to make the outer covering. This is a job for the women, from young girls to grandmothers. These seams must be absolutely waterproof. The lives of their men will depend on it. Next, the men take over again and lash the covering to the boat frame with rawhide thongs. Only a few finishing touches now, and the boat will be ready for launching. For the children, summertime is mostly playtime. The boys go in for rough, rugged sports, the kind that builds strong bones and muscles tough as rawhide. For life here is a never-ending test of strength and stamina, even in play. The games of the girls are more restrained. They amuse themselves by telling folk tales, which they illustrate on the smooth mud of the beach. But the finest sport of all is blanket toss. It's enjoyed by boys and girls alike. Perhaps the best hunter in the village is Koganak. There must be only one shot for one bird. Ammunition is precious, and a miss can mean an empty stomach. His young son, Makaluk, is learning in the school of experience. He's passed all his tests in handling the unpredictable kayak. He even gets an A in cleanliness. As his schooling progresses, he learns the use of weapons, both ancient and modern. Indeed, there are many things a father must teach his son. Koganak has many mouths to feed. Besides his wife, Ananak, and his infant son, Moan, he has a daughter of marriageable age named Pelea, as well as 3 younger girls, Napesha, Chikoyak, and Niala. The boy baby is always the idol of the household. Sometimes the gathering of winter stores has all the excitement of a treasure hunt. The trick is to find the home of the tundra mouse. He's not the object of the search, but his storehouse is full of tasty nuts and berries. At the trading post, Koganak the hunter goes shopping for the few items he can't produce for himself. Up here, prime furs are the substitute for dollars. And when it comes to making change, poker chips take the place of coin. On the day of the whaler's return, there's much excitement in the village. Everybody lends a hand, for after all, it's everybody's whale. Although the white whale is a relatively small species, still this one weighs about a ton, and that's enough to give every family a good portion. And now for the treat, a nice, tasty chunk of whale skin. It's the Eskimos' chewing candy. They call it muck-tuck. And it has a taste like beech nuts, they say. Anyhow, looks like it's good for the teeth. Every part of the whale will be used. Even the intestines are saved. They supply the Eskimo with a sort of natural plastic for which he has many uses. All through the village, winter stores are piling up. But summer is nearly over now, as the last catch of the season goes to the drying racks. The frosty breath of the Arctic sends a foreboding of what's to come. The dogs sense the change. They know that the days ahead will be filled with hardship for dog and master alike. As the blizzard sweeps down from the north, only the dogs are left outside to face the bitter blast. This is no thoughtless cruelty. The Eskimo can't afford to pamper his dogs, and exposure to the elements keeps them healthy and fit. And now, Koganek and his family settle themselves for a long winter underground. There'll be few idle hours. Still, there's always time to relax with a good book. Now let's see. What will it be? Bicycles? Bonnets? Banjos? No, not much here for an Eskimo to get excited about. Wait a minute, here's something more useful. He could certainly use a rifle, some tools, a kerosene lamp, an icebox. Icebox? Why, these people have the world's finest deep freeze right in their own living room. Raiding the icebox is an old family custom, for an Eskimo's appetite isn't regulated by the clock. When you're hungry, you eat. This tasty tidbit is raw fish, preserved in seal oil. Since meats, fats, and oils build body energy, they're the main items in the Eskimo's diet. The pattern of Koganek's life is an endless circle. In the winter, he makes weapons to use in the summer, to provide food for the winter, when he makes weapons to use in the summer, and so on. His tools are crude, his weapons primitive. Still, Koganek has great faith in these things he carves with his own hands. Indeed, he relies far more on his throwing stick and harpoon than he does on his modern rifle. Elsewhere in the village, Koganek's neighbors find other tasks to fill the long winter months. This woman is using the dried intestines of the whale to fashion a raincoat. Strands of grass are stitched into the seams, making them completely waterproof. The men in the village are masters of all trades. Broken dishes are no problem here, for a bowl carved from driftwood is almost bound to wear well. This man takes time out to indulge in his favorite hobby, ivory carving. Koganek, too, has many tasks. Sealskin must be prepared to make mucklucks, the Eskimo's footwear. Seams are first marked with the teeth. Family measurements are reduced to the simplest terms. 2 spans for father, and the rest of the family in proportion. Trimming the soles offers an added attraction to the youngsters. The scraps make first-class chewing. Talea, the eldest daughter, takes a special interest in her boots, for she's soon to be married, and these will be added to her hope chest. When it's bedtime for baby, it's bedtime for the whole family. Lights out, and so to sleep. Tomorrow's sure to be another busy day. Something always hoped for but seldom received is a break in the weather. Whenever a clear day comes, it's a signal for an outburst of activity in the village. There's no telling how long this break will last. What's to be done must be done quickly. Food supplies must be replenished. Drinking water is low. Wood boxes are empty. And so the dog teams are made ready as the different work parties prepare to carry out their appointed tasks. But at last, peace is restored, and the first team starts off across the snowfield. The beach party, searching for fuel, finds driftwood not only along the beach, but also some distance offshore, where the pressure of the pack ice has forced it to the surface. Reindeer are the Eskimos' cattle. Far inland, the village herd has just been located. After a steady diet of raw fish and seal blubber, fresh reindeer steaks will be most welcome. Meanwhile, miles from land, far out across the emptiness of the frozen sea, Koganek and his party have reached the fishing grounds. Out here in the silence, all seems calm and peaceful. And yet these men are actually on borrowed time. Should a blizzard catch them so far from the village, their chances of returning would be remote. Aware of the danger, but not alarmed by it, they go about their work methodically. These are needlefish, a great delicacy. They're eaten as is, spines and all. Fishing through the ice is an old Eskimo custom, and centuries ago, they invented some peculiar methods of angling which they still practice today. One of these is jiggle stick fishing. And all that's required is a barbless hook, a bright-colored lure, a sinew line, and a limber wrist. On fishing expeditions like this, the puppies always tag along. Actually, it's part of their training for the hardships of the trail. But to the pups, it's better than a picnic. After all, there's no telling what a fellow might pick up if he's on his toes. Suddenly, Koganek's weather sense warns of danger. Through his homemade eye shades, he scans the horizon. A storm is not far away and closing in fast. They may have waited too long. But for Koganek, there's still one final chore. From a nearby freshwater pond, he hurriedly gathers large blocks of ice to supply his family with drinking water. As the blizzard closes in, he will be the last man in the village to find the warmth and safety of his underground home. Koganek's safe return is a festive occasion, and so tonight his family will celebrate over a delicious bowl of blueberry ice cream. This rare old recipe is well worth remembering. Take one bowl last summer's blueberries. Not just any blueberries. They must be preserved in fish oil, which gives them a racy, slightly fermented flavor. Meanwhile, to one skillet of slowly simmering seal blubber, add 2 heaping handsful raw reindeer tallow. Then pour this savory sauce into a large driftwood mixing bowl. Now, add several tablespoons plain drifted snow and mix thoroughly, by hand. After all the ingredients are thoroughly blended, add the blueberries and fold in gently. Finally, clean utensils thoroughly and serve. This mixture is called akutak, the blueberry ice cream with the fish flavor. It's tangy, tasty, and much appreciated by young and old alike. But only if you're an Eskimo. Days pass, and weeks, and still the blizzard howls across the village. Such is the Arctic winter. The Eskimos call it Ukiruk Tiluk, the time of waiting. But finally there comes a night when the sky's clear and a frosty moon heralds the coming of spring. For on this night an elaborate ceremony will take place. Of course, everyone will attend, even the baby. The thermometer is still well below zero, and so Chikoyak lines her mukluks with rags, to which Papa adds a generous padding of straw. to Pelea, the festival is just the place to show off her new and fetching spring ensemble. Makaluk waits impatiently as Papa, at the last minute, decides to go full dress. And so he simply turns his everyday clothes inside out to display its gorgeous lining of goose feathers. On this night, a current of excitement runs through the village. The sound of drums is heard, and a muffled chanting of many voices. From all directions, the villagers make their way toward the community meeting house. On this night of nights, the villagers thank their gods for the passing of another winter, the coming of another spring. The masks represent the gods of the sky, the sea, and the land. To the god of the sea goes special praise, for he took only 3 lives this year, a small price for the bounty he gave. These people have no written history. All their tribal lore is preserved in these ceremonies. By mid-evening, however, all the gods have received their due, and now the fun begins. The tempo quickens, and the performers exchange their solemn masks for the grinning faces of comedy. Actually, these are caricatures of the villagers themselves, and the dancers spare no one in a round of good-natured ridicule. These are a happy people. And although the Eskimo possesses neither gold nor precious stones, nor indeed any worldly goods that anyone else would want, he does find treasure beyond price. He finds peace and happiness and contentment.